So, good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good. Good.
Good weekend? Bad weekend?
Good.
Next weekend is a long weekend,
Yeah.
which I'm sure everybody will be spending studying, right? I will probably be spending it grading. So, so we're going to continue on. This is kind of our last week of covering material. After this, we shall be doing our review session next week. And subsequent to that, we will have the final examination. Dun, dun, dun. So, let us continue on with our example that we were doing previously. Please download the zip file from the announcements feed and drop that in your htdocs folder if you're not working on your own laptop. If you are, then you probably just have the files. 28. There we go. Get your Apache and MySQL servers up and running. Decompress the archive. There we go. Now, let's go to our SQL database administration. Import the SQL file that's in there. Set up our table for us. Oh, oh. There we go. It says it's finished, but didn't make that. I guess I have to make the database. There we go. Create. There we go. Now we import. There we go. Go. There we have it. Very good, very good. Credentials database. Now, because we're now using password hashing, this is no longer a valid credential. So we should just delete it. Delete. There we go. Now, let's go to our website, localhost, and then navigate to the folder, 2025-07-28 in my case. Oh, error. Unrecognized operation. Very true. Oh, let me think here. Because we were doing stuff, weren't we? Yes, indeed we were. So, always nice to start the game off with a bug, eh? So, let's open our controller, because this problem originates in the controller. Let's open that up in our code editor. Where is it here? Come on, you. View, homepage, text. Where are you? Oh, I suppose we had to call it index.php, didn't we? One thing that we could do is simplify now this folder, because a lot of the PHP scripts in there are now redundant. Their functionality has been worked into the larger MVC architecture. So, the difference, the problem with this particular issue, previously, in order to try to get things working, I had taken all of these files and I had put them right at the tip top of htdocs. I had not put them inside of a subfolder. That is a subfolder. We configured our script to read our operation from the first thing you see here. That's now a folder, so we're running into this problem. The way that we fix this is by fixing the index that we are reading the operation from. Operation will now be at URL args2 because of the nestedness of the folder structure in our current iteration. It's possible that unless you followed those steps, that code never worked for you. Now it should. Gesundheit. You're welcome. Now, reloading the page. There we go. If we want to register a new user, Steve from Minecraft, username Steve FM. Password is password, of course. Re-enter password. It's password. Chrome should complain. There we go. We have registered a new person. You see that. Registration successful is the note that we get. We have register appearing there. So far, so good. Right? Good. Now, so we have a username and login system relatively stably down at this point, right? The next thing that we need to do, I'd like to demonstrate taking arguments from the URL that are actually meant to be variables rather than just strings that we select the operation with. So we'll need to expand the functionality here somewhat. Up to now, we haven't really been doing much, aside from just the login system. The dashboard page is currently, it greets you and it does nothing else. So, let's introduce a new table into our database. New table. So, this is going to be posts, basically. Posts. So, let's imagine that we're making an application, the purpose of which is for people to be able to view the posts that other people make, right? Something resembling, no trouble, something resembling X or Twitter. So, what sort of fields would we need for a database of these posts? What sort of data do we need? Everybody's looking at their screens. Username, sure. The user that created the post, right? Now, here's a question, right? Should we use username? Or should we maybe use primary keys? User number rather than username. Does anybody know what the advantage of using user number over username is?
It's going to be unique.
it's going to be unique. Usernames should be unique as well, but primary keys are certainly unique, yes. Ugh. Anybody? Any ideas?
There's a limited amount of strings you can put in, but you can put in as many numbers as you want.
Well, technically speaking, there are more strings than numbers. Because, if you have the same number of place values, you can get more information into a string than a number. It's speed. Speed of comparison. It's much, much faster to compare two numbers than it is two strings, right? To compare two strings, you have to loop through them both, checking to see if they're the same character. Bing, 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 bing. You have to go through the whole thing, right? But with integers, that's like a one-step operation in comparing two numbers. It's built right there into the CPU. So if we use numbers, user number, that increases speed. It's also just as easy to cross-reference as username. You lose nothing and you gain speed. So, it is also probably true that we'll want a primary ID for the post itself, right? That makes sense. We always want one of those things. Just makes everything so easy, right? There we go. So, let's call this user. There we go. So,
let's like slash values.
Sorry, slash values?
You put the
Oh, that's true, yeah. Sorry, my thing wasn't all the way to the, there we go. All right, thank you. User. Thank you. So, for these posts, we have the user that created them, a primary ID for posts. What else do we need?
Post.
Yes! Can't have a post without a post, right? So, the post itself. Or perhaps, well,
Value?
content, maybe? Content? Let's make out of varchar. The character limit on tweets used to be like 140. So let's do 141. Ah! We're one better. There you go. So we've got ID, the user that created the post.
shouldn't the user be a varchar too or no?
Well, not if it's supposed to be the user's ID number,
Oh.
right? Should be the same data type as their primary key. Two other things. What are you usually able to do with posts?
Comment?
Comment. Now that's an interesting one, right? Commenting on posts is a little bit interesting. So you can imagine, like, ooh, let's make this a list of sub-entries, right? That gets complicated. You want to know the easy way of doing it?
What?
Cross-reference the same table. Have a field, reply to. If reply to is set to null, it's not a reply to anything. So it's a primary post. But if there's any value to reply to, it's the post ID of the post that this post is replying to, right? Because all posts can reply to, at most, one other post, right? There you go. And then you can just cross-reference the same table. Make sense?
Yep.
Very good. One more thing. Likes. Shall we do likes? Yeah? Sure. There we go. So that probably will do, that'll do for us for the time being. you will see that when we are finished, this thing will be remarkably like Twitter. Good. So, now we need to consider our model functions. So, with these posts, we need to have some way of the MVC architecture pulling that data out of the database so that it can be used in a view. Right? Quick review of MVC architecture. Anything that talks to the database is in M, V, or C. Which one?
The architecture. The view?
It's in M, right? The model is the thing that talks to the databases. Where does the model place data so that the view can get at it? Is it on screen right now? The template array. The template array is the thing that carries data from the model to the view. Assuming it isn't already stored in the session, right? It doesn't cost anything to read like the username out of the session. So, our objective then is to write a model function which grabs the information about the existing posts from the table we just created and put it in the template array. We have our objective. So let's open up our model. Model. App.model. There we go. You can read this from the back. This is good. Good. All right. So, we never did log out. All right, let's do log out quickly then. Log out is pretty simple. Session unset. There you go. Ta-da! So, retrieve posts table contents. Now, in a real application, we would be a little bit more selective about the posts that we're choosing, right? In a real application, you would have a set of users you were following, and you would filter the posts for only those users that you're following, assuming that you're it's that style, recommendation algorithms or something else, right? We don't have time to implement one of those. But yes. But for now, let's just keep things simple. Retrieve posts table contents. Function, get posts. We don't really have to provide any parameters here because we're just really doing a select query, and a pretty simple select query at that. At least for the time being. We still need this line, which imports the database handle and the template array. Our query will be as simple as select star from posts. That's it. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. From here, we prepare the statement. From there, we execute the statement. There we go. If the response is true, that is to say, if it was successful, we want to fetch all, in associative mode, the posts. As a matter of fact, we don't even necessarily need to save it to a local variable. Remember, the purpose of this function is to pass this information along to the view. The view is going to control how it gets displayed. Model view distinction. The model is getting the data, the view is displaying the data. So, we could even replace this with template array at posts. There we go. And if that failed, we should give an error message somewhat similar to that. Now, how quick was that? How quickly were we able to pull that together? Right? A lot of this code ends up being very boilerplate when you use this kind of architecture. And that's a good thing, right? The code which is boilerplate here is removed from you entirely when you're using a framework. That's generally what the purpose of a framework is to take these sort of repeated code segments and like actually make it so you don't have to type them. I feel like I need to sneeze. If it was an important sneeze, it will come. Ugh. So okay, so we've got our posts. We also need to perform that function anytime we view the dashboard, right? It doesn't really make sense to fetch that information if we don't need it. We should only fetch it if we are going to show the dashboard, right? So, take a look at the code that produces the dashboard view and pop that in right there. Get posts. Boom. Gets our posts. Make sense? Remember, like you may be tempted, right? You may be tempted to put that line in the dashboard view itself. But remember, the view should not talk to the model. Model view separation. Everything needs to go through the controller. Okay? So let's load the dashboard view. Oh, that's a persistent. I need to sneeze but can't. Oh man. Ugh. So, we have our welcome, we have our logout button. We'll keep that at the top, I guess. Here is where we want to view our posts. So, let's write some PHP script to do that. Right now we are in HTML mode. Let's put ourselves in PHP mode. So if we want to view all of the posts, well, actually, you know what? Let's first just display some data, like very simply, and then we can format it. Echo JSON encode template at posts. That was the place that we stored that data. We'll also need some data, so let's insert. Let's just do 1 or 2 posts, just so we have something to work with, right? So we shall have this by user number 1, which presumably is the one user that we have. User number 1, content will be lovely day. Well, that's actually what the title is. I have opinions, and the internet needs to hear them. There we go. This is not a reply to anything. So actually, like a null or a 0 would work in this situation. Likes, nobody liked that. Yes.
When you reply with a 0 value, is that considered to be null by SQL?
SQL doesn't really care one way or the other. It's how we interpret the table in PHP that will determine its functionality.
Okay.
So if we choose, like, the way these things work is like you won't have a user 0 generated, right? So basically it's like the same thing as asking for user -1, right? It's like it's a value that doesn't exist. As long as we know what the value is that doesn't exist, it's our indication of a user that doesn't exist.
Okay.
We could also do something like if user ID is less than 1, right?
Yeah.
But the SQL table itself isn't particular about what that means, right? It's the model that gives the data meaning. The data is just the data.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Good question. Look, first I have nose problems, now I have eye problems. Oh, I've just fallen apart. Do yourself a favor, never get old. So, let's put that in. Good, all right. Let's do one more just for the sake of interest. So we have more than one thing there. Again, user 1, the content will be, I have opinions about people who have opinions on the internet, and the internet needs to hear them. Which seems to be most of the conversations that happen on the internet, is like the one or the other of those. This will also be a reply to 0, and nobody liked that one either. Well, one person liked that. There we go. Go. There we go. If we take a look at our table, we now have some data, which is good because we need some data to test this on. So, to log in, Steve FM, password was password. There we go. Aha! Just like that. We have our data being loaded. But we are web designers. We are designing things for use by people. If you are making your user read raw JSON output, you're doing it wrong. We should wrap that in something slightly nicer looking. So, and this is a good review of how to mix HTML and PHP together. So, fundamentally, if we take a look at the structure of the data, we have an array of associative arrays. We want to loop over that array. So, one way you can do this, do I remember how to do a for each loop? For entry as template add posts. Is that correct? For each and PHP? Okay, 4 each. Like that. Oop. Pretty good. Yeah? Hopefully. Remember that in PHP, you can open up a PHP tag for only a single curly brace. Right? So, everything that's put between these two tags will be repeated once for each entry. Make sense? Loops. Good. So, I don't know. We can do this as a, do you want to do a table or do you want to do divs? Divs are easier. Divs? Okay, let's do divs. There we go. So, paragraph, end paragraph, that will be for content. And let's just keep it simple. User, what was it? Did we just call it user? I think we just called it user. Yep, just user. Reply to and likes. Of course, for these which are numeric, you should have something like user reply to likes. There we go. So, let's see how that looks. We actually don't need to resend the login. Oh! Undefined variable entry. I'm going to look up for each loops.
I want to say it's flipped, like it's the package and then the single entry.
That's probably the case, yeah. But like, that means that PHP picked a bad word because like in English it makes equal sense to put that the other way around, you know? But oh well. Let's try it this way. This is probably correct. Let's try it. Whoop! Yeah, there you go. Oh, did I not do likes? I didn't do likes. Likes. And just, you know, because divs are kind of, like, you need to be able to see them. Let's throw it down a quick style block to put a border on those. Remember, we're doing that in the header. Style, and style, div, border, 2 pixels, solid, black. There we go. Quick and dirty. Boop, there we go. Now our posts are visible. Question?
I have the error you started off with, so I can actually view to see if it works.
Oh.
It's the it's when you request the file, it just says that it's invalid operation.
Go to your code. Go to the controller. Index. You don't. Scroll down, scroll up.
This is the older one, both from the announcement, so I don't know if it's,
Well, if it's the one that I just, right there, change that to 2.
gotcha.
There we go. Anybody else having any trouble getting it working?
Thank you.
Alright.
Looks like I'm having problems trying to just load it.
Shouldn't matter.
Just takes a long time.
Can't be reached. Well, that would be because it's on port 4. This should port 43. That should need it. What folder is it in?
Because I just recreated my video too, so that's screwing me.
Okay. So that one, put that in the URL address bar. Pardon? Problems? Anybody got problems? No? Okay, alright. Problems?
I was having an issue. I missed something in this. So, what's that to it? I guess when I run it, they get the same issue resolved.
Yeah. Show me your controller.
But it's saying it doesn't recognize the hosts. So I don't know if it's too.
Oh, that's not too.
I see.
Try saving everything. Everything is.
We don't know what I missed.
May I?
This is really fine.
So,
Yeah.
this is your browser.
Let's get host function in this parent body.
See, you're in week 12 of 2025. So you would actually need
This
one
one
more
works.
than that.
I just copied this thing to it, so it works.
On the index page, that's going to be located at 3.
Okay.
Because it's like your depth. You'll also need to modify anywhere in the view that you have. Wait, will you? No, that should be fine. This should work now. There we go. All right. There we have it. So, so there are a couple of things we could do here. But first, just to kind of demonstrate the flavor, let's implement a like button. Make sense? So, a like button will trigger another SQL query. This time it will be an update query because we're trying to update existing posts, right? But let's make it so that which post we are liking and the fact we are liking it is communicated in the URL. All right? We'll have something like this. Try that again. Something like URL/like/post number. Something like that. Sound good? Good. So, within our code that generates, or that shows us the likes, it's a logical place to put a button to like it a bit more. So, I'm going to use a form for this, mainly because I just don't want to have to write an Ajax query. So, also, like, technically speaking, JavaScript is not prerequisite for this. So, you know. Ajax queries will not be on the final, although they may be mentioned. So the action that we're looking at here, it will be like, rather than what it was before. The button text should probably be like +1 or something like that, right? And now, that's almost all of the information we need. However, we need to tell the system what we are liking, right? And we need to work that into the URL. So here's a fun thing. Which slash is it? // That's right, folks, you can work data in just like that. So, if we work in the entry ID, notice that that is occurring inside of this action string. This, remember PHP, this will be substituted for its output. Right? So, let's see how that renders. Refresh, you get a +1 button. And if you click it, there you go. It's an unrecognized operation because we haven't recognized it yet. But if you take a close look at the URL, like /1, right? Now, in a real system, these would be cryptographically secure strings. These would be post codes rather than just simple numerical entries. But for our purposes here, right now, this is still working pretty well. So, let's recognize that operation, shall we? If we go to our dashboard, or not dashboard, pardon me. If we go to our controller, the operation that we are receiving is like. So we need to make a new case in our switch controller for it. Here, we need to gather the information which post we are talking about. The post number is defined as as one after the operation. If we take a look here, right? We may have to dispense with that question mark. Or maybe, if we set it as post, will that make it go away? I'm curious. Or maybe I'm not an idiot. I'm maybe an idiot, but that's not the problem. No, that's still there. Well, Oh, great. Let me show you how to shave off the question mark. You should be doing this anyways to separate the URL args from the from any query parameters that have been passed, because those will show up here as well. So in your index, URL args is not just exploding on slash. We first should URL args is equal to explode on question mark, right? This will divide the array into the front half and the back half, the URL and the query parameters. For this, we are not interested in the query parameters, though we do need this here. There we go. We want the 0th item in that array. Then we take this result. That becomes the input to the second explosion, which explodes on slashes. Does that make sense? Just a little bit of light string manipulation this afternoon. So, having done that, let's take a look and see how things change. Reload, reload, reload. Oh, come on. Did you save? Save. Really? Okay. Well, it's going to make me print it. Oh, wait, whoa. Actually, the problem is this. I was printing it before I was working on it. I'm sure that's happened to you plenty of times. If we move that down here, we should find, yes, there we go. The question mark has been removed. So, that number is now something we can use directly. ID is equal to filter variable URL args at 3, and we want to filter validate int. Just because it's coming in through the URL doesn't mean it does not make it magically immune from script attacks. This is still coming from the user, and who do we never trust? The client, yes, or the user. Yes, we never trust the client. So, with, like, in practical terms, yeah, we're filtering that as well, filtering the operation. It's probably like, if you're gonna pick somewhere to be lazy, it should probably be with the operation name, because, like, it's being switched on. It's not making it to the database or anything. It's just being switch cased, right? But yeah. So there we go. Ooh! I forgot something actually. Here, template at posts at content is equal to filter var that thing filter sanitize special chars. There we go. Filter it coming in, filter it coming out. Even if you have been very careful to filter all incoming data to the database, there is still a non-zero chance that there's a stored XSS attack inside of your database. Right? So, it's important to filter the data going into your database and filter the data coming out of your database. Always filter everything. Okay, dokie? Sound good?
Give me just 1 second.
Sure. We kind of need to be in the model file anyways, because we need to put some code in to do a like, to send a like to the database. So, we want to like a particular ID post ID. Throw global in, because we need that too. Query. So here's a question. Does anybody remember how to +1 something on the database? Because you can do it right in the SQL query. I just can't, for the life of me, remember how. It's definitely an update function, though. Eh? I'll look it up then. Set, yeah. Set thing equals thing plus 1. There you go. Alright, update posts. Set likes equals likes plus 1, where ID is equal to question mark, where that will be the past ID. We want to prepare and execute, same as usual. Passing the ID. There we go. Does this make sense? You can see how like a lot of this code ends up being pretty boilerplate. Like you could write a function where you could send it an SQL query and a few parameters and it would figure it out, right? And again, that's something that a framework would provide for you, right? Any questions? All right, let's see if it works. Refresh. Oh, undefined index. Let's see here. Line 16. Post set content is undefined, you say. Is that true? Encode, not endnode. Let's see here. Content. Yes. Oh, I know what I did. I'm treating it as if it were one post, but it's actually many. For I equal to 0, I is less than count of this thing. I plus plus. Template posts I content. Template posts I content. There we go. That should work. Let's see. Uh-oh. Yes, I forgot my things. There we go. Try again. There you go. That's better. So, let's see if this works. Uh-oh. Not quite. That's okay though. It gives us an opportunity to debug, which I'm sure is everyone's favorite activity. So, oh, I think I know what the problem is actually now that I say that. We probably just didn't call this function. That's exactly the problem. There we go. It would also be useful to have, if ID equals null or ID is equal to false, print an error. Not a very specific error, but an error nonetheless. There we go. Try again. Like, there we go. Likes went up. Like, uh-oh. Well, that's interesting. Like. That is a problem. That is not an integer, that's true. So, the problem that we're encountering here is related to relative versus absolute paths, right? We can probably fix this error by switching from relative paths to absolute paths. It's not a great solution, though. particularly when you're developing something like this. Site can't provide a secure connection. Oh, interesting. Alright. It'll have to be HTTP then. Hmm. I wonder if it does that if it's a link. Hmm. Where are we here? Let's just grab a fresh one. There we go. Localhost sent an invalid response. What do you mean? There we go. I deleted my session cookie. That's why that got logged out. Password. There we go. +1. Still getting that. Oh, very strange. That one I'll have to look up to see. I'll have to look up the solution to that one. I'll bring it to you by Friday. So, at any rate, it does work once.
Is it the SQL?
No, it's not the SQL. So here's a description of the problem I'm having, right? When I click this button, I get like 1. Very good. That's the operation I want to perform. But if I click it again, you'll see I get like 1. Right? which is not what you're going for, right? It's saying not an integer, which is true. That is not an integer, right? So it's like a absolute versus relative pathing issue. Yes.
Can you just, while it'll constantly create likes, so it won't be a relative solve to your problem, but could you just say refer to the next string? Where you'd still have thousands of likes if you keep pressing the like button.
I mean, yeah, you could just set it
It would still
to,
read out the number.
yeah, you could set the index to the last number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the last entry in the array.
Yeah, that would technically work, but it doesn't fix your, it doesn't address the problem.
Yes. Do you know what the word kludge means? That is a kludge. Let me show you. This is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite Wikipedia articles. Wikipedia. Kludge. A kludge is a workaround or makeshift solution that is clumsy, inelegant, inefficient, difficult to extend, and hard to maintain. Its only benefits is that it rapidly solves an important problem using available resources. For example, a famous example is the improvised CO2 scrubber that kept the astronauts alive on Apollo 13. This term is used in diverse fields such as computer science, aerospace engineering, internet slang. That's the picture for internet slang? Okay. Evolutionary neuroscience. See, that looks more like a picture from evolutionary neuroscience, you know?
Yeah.
Or animation. But this is like one of my favorite pictures of all time. You see that? You see what they've done to this poor bridge? The bridge collapsed. So what did they do?
They built a bridge in front over.
They built a bridge on the bridge to go over the collapsed section. But if you look, like the bridge that goes over the bridge comes off like the middle of the collapsed section of the bridge that's half in the water. That's not a great solution. Not a great solution. The better solution would, of course, be to build a new bridge. But you don't always have the time, resources to build the new bridge. The problem, though, and I'm sure we all have experienced this or will experience it at some point in our lives, there is nothing more permanent than a Band-Aid solution. If you ever think that's not true, work in an organization with a bureaucracy for even 2 months and you'll figure that one out. So, yes, that would be a kludge. It would work, but it would be a kludge. See, there is an art to the writing of a kludge. Kludges require creativity, right? They're not good solutions, but sometimes a solution is all you need. Yes?
This is completely, I think this is a bit off topic, but kludge, what's the name after?
Etymology of the word.
Yeah, I think that's in the article, actually. Yes, there it is. Alternate, it's either kludge or kludge. But here's the first use. An ill-assorted collection of poorly matched parts forming a distressing whole, especially in computing, a machine system or program that has been improvised or bodged together, a hastily improvised and poorly thought out solution to a bug or fault. Let's see, should be in here. There you go. Apparently close to American Yiddish, kludge, meaning too smart by half. The reflected meaning of the German kludge or clever. This may explain the idea of clever but clumsy or temporary, as well as the pronunciation variation from German. Yes.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. There you go. So So if you wanted to know way too much about a word that kind of almost doesn't exist, this is the article for you. Again, one of my favorite Wikipedia articles. Oh my goodness. Stop, Wikipedia, stop. Too much information. Alright. Anyway, yes, that would be a clutch. The better solution would be to find out why it's doing that and then stop it. I cannot do that in class though. So, like I have examples where it doesn't do that, you know? Just not the one I'm currently working on.
Yeah.
An example in a different class where it doesn't do this. Anyway, so that's how liking works. You can see that the modification has actually been made to the database. So far, so good. So, this is really like, this is kind of like, this is really the bridge for you into the concept of a REST API, right? At the moment, we are using REST-like features to issue web pages. If what you do is you take this apparatus and you migrate that to giving you JSON data, basically, rather than whole web pages, congratulations, you have a REST API. Make sense? I saw a joke once, and the joke was this. Someone was complaining about something not being a REST API, and then a person replies, it's only a REST API if it's developed in the REST region of France, otherwise it's just sparkling JSON.
I get the joke.
Good! I'm glad. So yeah, let me take a look at the notes, see if there's anything important I'm missing. That's a good thing to do every once in a while, right? So, okay. So why are REST what's behind REST APIs? Why are APIs so why do you want them so badly these days? Well, yeah. The thing about APIs is that you can charge for them. That's the whole reason you develop them, actually. Or at the very least, REST APIs become one vehicle that your company can rinse people for money. So if you consider this, which is the developer platform for, I won't say the popular, post-platform X, because a lot of people seem to really dislike it these days, but I don't know, popularity doesn't necessarily mean people like it, right? Anyway, they just know about it. Famous. Famous is the word I'm looking for. Not popular. So, without, with just your basic level of access, you get you can automatically API yourself in 500 posts a month, right? If you pay for it, you get between 3,000 and 50,000 posts per month. At the professional level, you can post 1 million posts per month, which, that's a lot.
Buying boats or stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's your absolute spam tier, right? Yeah, so like if you were making a reply bot, right, or trying to, if you were trying to artificially manipulate algorithms, 1 million per month is probably, enough to be able to do that, right? The only question is that more or less expensive than paying people in, far-flung parts of the earth to just simply like the things you tell them to, that's the question. But, also access to the ads API. Presumably if you're putting ads on the platform, you would need to subscribe to it. But like the whole point is that they charge for this, right? This is how they make at least some of their money, right? And that's actually the pro level. They have an enterprise level as well, that probably you can get more than 1 million posts per month. By the way, I think I worked it out at some point. 1 million posts a month is like 1 post every 10 minutes or something for a month,
4,000 for an 8-hour day.
4,000 for an 8-hour day?
Over 4,000.
Let's work it out. This is fun. All right. So how many seconds are there in a month? That's a good question. 60 seconds in a minute times 60 minutes in an hour times 24 hours in a day times 30 days in a month-ish. All right. So that's about 2.5 million. So if we take that and we divide it by 1 million, yes, that works out to 1 post about every 2.5 seconds. And you can pay for that. 2.5 seconds. I hope they're all saying something interesting. I bet they're not all saying something interesting. So that's like, when you write an API for a service, you can charge for that, right? You can rinse developers for money, which is a good thing to be able to do, I guess. It's at least a thing you are able to do now. So, yes. So, there is one other thing which we should discuss about REST APIs. One element of REST APIs is making use of method types, right? So far, we've discussed get and we've discussed post, right? Get out. This is not like strictly adhered to, right? It's a guideline, general guideline, but your HTTP method types have a mapping to CRUD operations on a database, right? So in SQL, our CRUD operations are, what's C? Create. Read. Update. Delete. Very good. So each of our, so we have 4 HTTP request methods that are, in theory, supposed to do these operations, right? So Let's see if we can guess. What's the method type for delete? Anybody? Method type for delete is? Delete! That's right. There's an actual HTTP method type called delete, and that is what that one corresponds to. Update. This one's a little weird. Put. There is a method type called put, and that's how you put something into the database, I guess. Yeah. These two are either get or post. Anybody care to guess which one is get and which one is post? Get is create. No. It's create is post. So when you post something to Instagram, what are you doing? You're creating a database entry, which means that our humble get request is a read operation, right? So again, this is not strictly adhered to. You could consider password login as a read operation. Like, you're not intending to put anything into the database. You just want to read the current state of the database to see if the user's credentials are valid, right? It's really a read operation. You can even tell because what SQL command do we use for that? We use select. That's the read operation. Do you send your users login credentials via get parameters? No, everybody. No, I do not send my users login credentials via get parameters. You send them via post parameters because post parameters are encrypted, right? You do not want to expose your users to man-in-the-middle attacks, which would happen to every single one of them once a hacker found out that you were so stupid as to encode things that way, right? So, again, these are loose guidelines. It's also possible, because this wasn't sufficient, it's also possible to have a get request sending post parameters, or have a post request sending get parameters. It is possible to have both get and post parameters on any one of these things, right? There's no coupling between them. So, yeah, but this correspondence between your CRUD operations and HTTP methods, this is an element of REST. So what you should, like the way that you should think of REST APIs, you should think of it as, I am allowing people controlled access to the database a bit more directly than I would through the web page itself, right? What you're doing is you're designing something where the developer, the developer elsewhere, your customer, the developer, doesn't have to use your stinky, awful web form to input data into your database or get data out of your database. They can just do it with code. You can launch these things from Python scripts, right? Did you guys know that? You can launch HTTP requests from Python scripts? Oh yeah, you can totally do that. There's a web URL library in Python. So your web API ain't just for browsers, right? Here's another thing that web APIs are not just for. Computers that have browsers at all, right? So what is the Internet of Things? This is getting to be a bit of an older term now, but anybody? You know what the Internet of Things is? Yeah?
It's like the devices that control things basically. So
Sure.
like computers, thermostats, like all that stuff.
Thermostat is an excellent and perhaps even the typical example. So you have this line of products called Google Home, I think it's called, or Google Nest or Amazon Nest. Those things, right? It's like, oh, do you want your house's heat statistics reported to your phone? Do you want to be able to control your thermostat from your phone, right? These are Internet of Things. Do you want to be able to, control the temperature of your refrigerator and look in a little camera to see what the state of, see if you have any milk while you're at the grocery store, right? That kind of thing. So, Internet of Things is, you take something that's just a physical device that does some function, and you connect it to the internet because that might be useful to some people some way, right? Last year, for Father's Day, I got my father-in-law a thing called the meter, which is basically a Internet of Things enabled meat thermometer, because he's a barbecue enthusiast, right? And he just thinks the thing is just the best thing he's ever seen in his life. Although he finds it a little creepy that it emails him to ask him how his steak was. But it does a little bit more fancy prediction of I will tell you to the minute based on how quickly your roast is heating up when your roast will be finished, right? That kind of stuff. So here's a question. Let's say we have our Internet of Things enabled thermostat. Let's say we have our cellular phone. It looks more like an iPad, but whatever. How are these things communicating with each other?
Router, modem.
Router, modem, sure. They're connecting to Wi-Fi, kind of fundamentally, right? They're both connected to Wi-Fi, but does your router store data? The router connects to servers somewhere, right? So, this is what's actually happening. Your thermostat reports temperature data. That temperature data is sent out on the internet, stored in a server somewhere. That's why, another thing about Internet of Things is that they often want subscriptions. So if you wanted a subscription for your toothbrush, here's your opportunity, guys. Well, the reason they ask for subscriptions is because they have server costs, right? So they store your house's temperature data in this server, which, by the way, means that it's their data, and they get to sell it to whoever they want, right? Then, that data is sent back to the phone. Oh, sorry, pardon me. I almost made a terrible, terrible mistake. The server can't send anything to a phone. This is a server, and that's a client. The client always has to initiate the communication, right? So the phone says, I would like to know about the status of my thermostat, please. Sends it to the router, sends the request to the database. The database then sends that data back to the phone. The phone receives the data. Make sense? So, this thing will display some kind of graph of the temperature in your house. But this thing has a browser. Does this thing have a browser? It would be kind of ridiculous to look at, like, you know, web comics. Can you imagine a world in which you could read dinosaur comics on your thermostat? I've seen some fancy fridges though that have an inbuilt browser, which is kind of funny. It's like, well, that's an interesting feature. I don't think I would ever use it, and it's certainly not worth paying 3 times the price I would normally pay for a fridge. And that's kind of how like Internet of Things was initially developed. It's like, well, we don't know whether people will buy these things, but some people might make some money, so we'll throw money at it as business people, because that's what business people do. Whenever there's a business opportunity, they'll throw money at things to see if they can make any money back. Most of the products they develop are terrible and don't sell, like, for example, the internet-enabled toothbrush. And the things that are actually useful will still be around in, 15, 20 years, and those will be the people that, made money from Internet of Things. For the life of me, I can't figure out the purpose of a smart light bulb.
I don't mind them.
No?
I wouldn't recommend the thermostat.
Yeah?
If someone changes it, it remembers that pattern, and a week later, it'll change it again.
Oh.
So I was fighting with it for a while, and then I realized it was just recognizing the thing. I had to clear all the
So
the smart lights. You can set up routines where, like, when you get within a Wi-Fi boundary, the light turns on.
Oh. But, like, is that like the smart switch or the smart
I
light
use the
bulb?
switches. I don't like the bulbs. They always
Yeah.
get reset because people turn off the switches. And
Yeah.
I would also go with, instead of having smart plugs, you can get smart relays that you can put inside the plug.
There you go.
They're a lot
Yeah.
cheaper too.
See, my objection was to the bulbs particularly. It's like, I don't know why you would switch it at the bulb itself. It has a switch.
You
You know?
don't have the skills to do it. I know a lot of people that do it, and
Yeah.
I've ended up replacing all their stuff because it's terrible.
Yeah. At any rate. So this thing doesn't have a browser, right? The best thing that this thing is doing is sending back and forth JSON data. Probably JSON data, right? Reporting, it's doing that in the form of JSON. Hearing back, when somebody, messes up your schedule and it saves it, that messed up schedule is sent back in the form of JSON, right? So this thing thinks of this thing more as an API than, like, web traditional, which is, I'm sending you a document, right? Does this make sense? This is the sort of thing that gets enabled when you start decoupling the idea of the internet as, like, a thing mainly for passing HTML files around with, right? Good. Good. So, let me show you something here now. Let me show you how to read what the method request is supposed, what the method type is. When you've designed things even under MVC architecture, not even necessarily REST API, because everything is coming in through a common interface, you still need to do different operations based on what the different method types are, right? For example, let's say we had, or maybe user 76, right? User 76, right? Get user 76 is a very different operation to delete user 76, right? So you need to be able to distinguish between these in code. So let's do that now. So if you remember, we said that update requests are put requests in HTTP. Our like operation is an update request. Let's make it so that it doesn't recognize it unless the method type is put. Make sense? It's easier than you might think. One of the values that the server contains is request method. Might need to be all capped. I'm just going to look up the syntax. PHP server request method. PHP documentation. Request underscore method. There he is. It was request method. I was right. And it was all capped. So I was wrong. There you go. Request method should be equal to put. There we go. Now, of course, do links have a method attribute? That's an interesting question. Do links have a method? Perfect. Set request method for link. Seems links are always get requests if the AI is to be trusted. Alright, so in that case you'd have to replace it with a form, right? Forms you can set the method of. Form action is equal to this business right there. Method is equal to put. There we go. Input value equals, or type is equal to submit. Value is equal to +1. And form. There we go. Save, 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 save. Now if we go back, undefined ID. Let me see. Well, I would need to do that, wouldn't I? Try her again. There we go. Still sending get, my friend. Is this something you can only do with Ajax, I wonder? Ah. Well, there you go. I don't want to write Ajax. Alright. We won't write any Ajax today. But you can use it, you can use Ajax to do that instead then. Alright, doesn't work. That's a shame. What's a pain? That's also a reason that, you need to know JavaScript and you can't just rely on forms for everything. Hey? Tragic limitations. So, any questions? I suppose just to show you that this does actually work, although it should be put for the time being, I'll make that needs to be post. We'll make that we'll leave it as get, show that it doesn't work. Doesn't work. There we go. Change this to post. Not posts. Post. Thank you. Reload. Boop. We can see that is now a post request, and it worked. Right? So it does work. It just you can only send get or post with basic HTML components. For the more advanced stuff, you need to send Ajax requests. Just because it came up, and since I have just a little bit of time, Python URL lib library. Just in case you might be interested in this, URL lib is a Python library for opening and reading URLs, not completely dissimilar from the fetch requests that we've been doing, right? Takes a little bit to set up. It's going to be clunkier than doing it in JavaScript, just because it's not quite what Python, the use cases are a lot fewer than Ajax requests, right? Still, extremely useful. You can do this from any programming language. C#, HTTP request. There we go. HTTP client object. There you go. Right? You can do this from C#. And, how about Java? Oh, look! Look at the Java version, everybody! Isn't that just like Java? Oh, Java. We love you so much. You have to cast it. Aw, Java. Aw, Java.
I think C# uses SQL connection as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if you're making an HTTP request, there's no reason you couldn't make an SQL request, right? Because the essential network infrastructure to make an HTTP request is the same infrastructure for an SQL request. Did you know that SQL is a packet type as well as being a language, right? So you can send SQL packets over the network. which you can do, of course, from, pretty much any programming language as well. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when you're connecting to a web server from a programming language, you can see how data is what you want and not a page, right? So, yeah, it's kind of fun to play with, but yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns, philosophical questions? No? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and attention today, folks. We shall resume on Friday. Friday? Thursday. And yeah. Good.
Will there be many like database questions? Questions involving the database?
On the test, I just for everyone for just a moment, I was just asked, are there going to be a lot of database questions on the test? It will certainly be on there. Databases were a major topic, so I'm also not ruling out that you might have coding questions to do with databases. As to the exact percentage of the test that databases are, I unfortunately cannot answer. Yeah.
Would it be something similar as what we did today?
So that's MVC architecture, which is also testable on the test. I would consider that to be a different topic from databases. It uses databases,
Okay.
right? But like how a switch controller works, that's also something you should know. And be able to reproduce a simple one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
I have
Thanks, sir.
Have a good one. You have a question? Oh, weird.
So I reinstalled it and got it to work.
Good.
The only thing I want to know real quick is to import the
Oh, those databases. You have to make the database first. Oh, click that little arrow at the top. So, click New. In the example, it's called YOYOY. There we go. Well, I think that might actually remove your ability to do anything. I think it has to be running to use this. Okay. Yes. Now you import, but once your cursor is like inside of the database, then it will work.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
It works on my local host, but not on that.
Oh, mine, we're talking about 73, right? Mine is jank.
So here's the first issue. I finished it like last week, or I thought I did. I open it.
I tried to fix it.
My first question didn't have a single function. What was I doing? So I literally spent the last 4 hours today modularizing it, and now it's working.
Yeah, I tried to fix the jank that I have and it just makes it worse.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I did. Actually, I did forget it turned out. That's okay.